Hi, everyone, and welcome to the HKTDC Summer Sourcing Weeks Go Online. Today's webinar, which is co-hosted by Jumpstart Media, will be focused on the vision and community to foster Hong Kong's next generation. I am Relina, the CEO of Jumpstart Media, and your host for the webinar today. Sitting next to me is our guest speaker, Ms. Joanne Chow, a co-founder of Azalvo, an ideas lab and co-creation community headquartered in Causeway Bay. Joanne has a very impressive background, and under her leadership, she was able to grow and expand her company across the textile, fashion, and homeware lifestyle sectors. During our discussion, if you have any questions or any thoughts, please feel free to share them with us, and you can use the Q&A box. So Joanne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So you're the co-founder of Azalvo, and which for our audience, that's a co-creation community focused on fashion and lifestyle. So what sets a co-creation community or an ideas lab apart from the traditional co-working spaces?
Well, previously when I was thinking through the landscape, I realized that there's lots of co-working offices, there's a lot of incubators and there's a lot of accelerators. However, there are very few ideas lab here in Asia or in Hong Kong specifically. Ideas Lab actually brings together business issues. We work through different problems and we try to solve something, whether it is in products or in services or creating different brands. So we encourage people to come and join us in our space if they have a problem to solve and products to launch or brands to actually grow with.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's more than just a co-working space because there's a community that's involved. There is like help, support. There's a lot more than just a space for everyone to sit in.
So over the last 2 years, we've actually attracted different types of businesses to our space. Some are up and coming designers. We have had wholesale platform specialists. We've also had older textile mills as well as people in UR and UX. So it specializes in internet and digitalization. So over the years, it's not just one way of looking at lifestyle and fashion, but how to create a digitalized process for brands that are building and growing with us.
Wow. So you talk about digitalization, you talk about building. So that requires a lot of support, sometimes tech facilities. Can you tell us a little bit more about like the tech and facility that you've integrated into Azalvo?
Sure. So when I first built out the first site, we actually integrated a fashion studio. So similar to a studio we're sitting in right now, you can actually take photography work. You can actually film in our office. We also have 3D printers because one of the things you will come to learn from even lifestyle products and fashion, you actually have to do prototypes. So our 3D printers are available for people to come and use. We also have academics on site who are actually very familiar with how to use the different types of printers available. So these are some of the types of technology we've integrated. And there are 3D scanners in terms of photographies that are also available in a different location.
Okay, wow. So it's like 3D scanners, which for maybe some startups is too expensive for them to afford themselves, but that's something that's available in Azalvo. And you talked about filming and photography. I think actually in the past you told me earlier, there were a TV show or movie that actually came over to film.
Yes, so sometimes our space also gets rented out for movie filming, so it can be converted into a police station one time and an office and a CEO, actually financial exchange for another. So it's been quite interesting to open our office up for different types of use, and we've definitely learned a lot from different types of industries.
That's really exciting. So if I was in Azalvo, I could possibly be sharing the space that a movie star walked through in the past. Right? How exciting. Okay. So another question we had was about tech. So tech has really captured the imagination of startups around the world. And we probably don't hear it enough, but tech is actually very much intimately involved in lifestyle and design and fashion. Can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on where you think tech will have the biggest impact on fashion going forward?
Sure. If you've noticed the last season, we've seen a lot of people come out with VR, AR technology, especially for a fashion show. We definitely see virtual sampling, virtual fashion shows here to stay, especially as we are unable to travel across borders. We also see a lot of bigger companies buying up smaller technologies company to analyze the demographics that they serve, as well as understanding how logistics and supply chain can be more efficient. So we are looking in a more D2C era where we're less less waste and more sustainable, much more socially conscious, and of course care more for the end consumers' well-being.
Okay, so a lot of different techs affecting different areas. I'm hearing logistics, something about like efficiency, sustainability. So a big range. Is there any tech that you have your eyes on?
Well, I've always been interested in wearable technology. That's an area I think in the next few years can take off, especially for the city of Hong Kong. I think we do have some interesting IPs here that we just have to continue to evolve and continue to work on. But it's not just one source that actually works. We have to collaborate and work with a lot of different types of manufacturers as well as industry experts in order to convert patents into actual products. Right. So I definitely see that being something that's going to happen in the next few years. Virtual showrooms as well as to be able to buy virtually, similar to that of all the buyers here online. It's here to stay. So applications that make it more accessible is definitely going to help all the buyers, users experience in the long run.
That's the new normal, right?
Correct.
Things aren't going back to the way they were after all this is over.
No, unlikely.
Unlikely. So, I know before this, you used to travel a lot. And one of the things that you've had a lot of success with is bringing global brands cross-border to Asia and expanding them and making them very successful in Asia. So, for example, Bow Concept and Tom Dixon. Can you tell us your thoughts and perhaps your secret sauce for successfully introducing global brands to Asia?
I guess it's out of passion for me to go into lifestyle, but at the same time, I definitely tell people not to take it on. It's not for the lighthearted. It's definitely a lot of hard work, and at the same time, hard work, localization, and commercialization. Over the years, we really had to get to know the end consumer in Hong Kong, what the likes are, how to convert Scandinavian lifestyle to everyday lives of people here. And then for Tom Dixon as well, we've had to understand the Chinese market and how to actually cross-border into China, and the logistics as well as of course, setting up a Chinese team is very different from setting up just a Hong Kong team. So there are a huge learning curve for both brands, and of course, both successes differ. So no one mold is right for everyone. I would have to say hard work, localization, and commercialization as the three key ingredients, and there's no secret sauce to it.
No secret sauce. I know Joanne works very, very hard, so that's probably where all of this comes from. Wow, okay. So once again, please don't be shy. Please feel free to use the Q&A box to share any questions or thoughts that you guys may have. So Joanne, another question for you. On the Azalvo website, you've mentioned the various factors that prevent a startup from taking off. What do you think are the biggest challenges that the next generation of entrepreneurs face? And what do you think some of the common mistakes that they make?
As we'll see contraction in small, medium, and of course some manufacturers, we definitely think entrepreneurs will face shortage in terms of getting the end goods to end consumers. If you factor in the different minimums to creating your products, to creating collection in the upcoming few years, we feel that to have a full collection is not as easy as previously. As entrepreneurs, it's a lot of times people think it's a money problem. I would say it's not just a money problem. To get the appropriate support from people to believe in your brand, to believe in your business, it's going to be harder as the pandemic continues. But at the same time, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, because if they only focus on money, they will also recognize that the business model may not be sustainable. So as a result, to create a good business plan, to think through what it means to actually start up is really important at the beginning juncture.
Yeah, and what about the knowledge that startup founders really should have, whether it's like accounting or other sort of knowledge?
That's a good point. Even myself, when I start different business and different ideas, I may have to do a lot of research, understand the market, understand the gaps, as well as brand build. So when I identify the areas that I'd like to improve on, I also have to look at, well, what are the financial resources? What are the complexities of it? So yes, you're correct. You may be a great designer, but without the business acumen to sustain in this business world, it is very difficult and highly complex. It's not just about having a store on eBay, which people actually succeeded in the previous past, to get the right traffic into your bigger, store is not something as simple as it used to be. So I do think business acumen is really important in the startup stage. So finding a good partner, finding a good first few employees, and as well as having a good HR manager later on is very important to scaling.
I think what Joanne says, what you say is making a lot of sense, because a lot of startups sometimes just focus on the here and now, but they have to think forward. They have to think in the future. So, for example, an HR might be something they skim on now, but then there's going to be pains in the future if they don't have a good HR, a good team, or a good co-founder and partner.
Yeah.
So, do you think the pandemic has affected the startup mentality, and how do you think young entrepreneurs can tackle the new challenges brought about by COVID-19?
I think probably before COVID, it's very strong capital commercial economy. But post-COVID, we're probably taking a step back and rethinking, do we need this type of materialism? And as a result, I wouldn't say less is more. I would say we're going to start changing the way and behaviors of purchase. I definitely see a lot of opportunities despite this change, but it's going to have to evolve through our everyday interaction with others. And I do think if we continue to mentally support each other through change, that's when entrepreneurs will definitely shine in the coming 6 to 12 to 18 months. To win market share, to grow in this current situation, you really have to be mentally strong to get through.
Yeah, I think that's true, especially since retail is one of the areas that have been hit pretty hard recently with the whole COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
We have some questions from the audience, so let me read these to you.
Sure.
And I think they'll be very happy to hear your thoughts on these. So what do you think the future fashion market is for Hong Kong? Is it difficult for the new generation to open their own business?
That's a very good question. I was reading about how the domestic market of Hong Kong plus China will grow in the next few years. I wouldn't say it's because of trade wars. I would say it's because there's emphasis and pride to where things that are made locally in Hong Kong or made locally in China. And as a result, we will see that change, and up-and-coming designers will have a huge opportunity. If you look at some shape or revitalization of Hong Kong, you start to see that trend, and we will see that as well kind of evolving into the rest of Hong Kong.
So it sounds like what Joanne's saying is there are opportunities,
correct,
as long as you're willing to go out there and grab them.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. How do you plan on diversifying your activities further or venturing into new ways in which to help the next generation of fashion and lifestyle startups of Hong Kong?
I don't want to just be Hong Kong specific. I think the global world actually can help each other through change. Hong Kong being an anchor for people to come and work out of here. It's going to be very interesting times as there's a balance between borders being closed and balance between the internet borders being open, and ways in which we can grow is through looking at these gaps. So I totally encourage people to look at their business model and how to pivot in the digital age, how to change and how to evolve, because this is a really good time also to win possible market share if you're ambitious in coming years.
Okay, so another question we have, what do you think about the difference going forward for the luxury market versus the retail kind of everyday market going forward?
I've reflected a lot on this as well, because if you go to any mall or department store, actually the luxury sector in Hong Kong is not doing as strong as the essentials. The affordable luxuries are doing far better at the moment than others. However, in China, the recovery of the luxury sector is coming back. So I think it's only through time, as the pandemic ends, that we will start to see luxury coming back. But based on the losses of the bigger European brands the first half of this year, it will take a little bit longer than expected.
Okay, but you think that there's still a space for luxury?
I still think there's a space for luxury if they're very clear on what the gap is and what type of an idea that they're selling that's in line with people's needs and wants and desires. But definitely, because we're trying to scale back and live a much more simple lifestyle, and I definitely think affordable brands will actually do better in this economy.
Okay, and another quick question. So we talk a lot about kind of the lower affordable luxury and then the retail, the super high luxury brand. What about the area in between?
Area in between really needs to know, do you know who you are? I think people are much more brand conscious in terms of do they fit the social economical interests of what they're purchasing. So as you can tell, sometimes a lot of people who do forecasting, they look at what's a global trend, what's a local trend, what's a government initiatives, what's the commercial initiatives. If brands can navigate through and still stay true to who they are throughout, then I think your core customers will know and be with you throughout. It's only when you lose sight of who you are, that's when it's very difficult to actually get through in the middle area. Mm-hmm. So luxury and affordable, because they know who they are, it's the middle part you have to stay true in order to be authentic.
Know your vision, know your mission, know what it is, know what the value that you are bringing. Correct. Is different from the other, I guess, brands out there. That's really the goal in that area, yes. Right? Okay, another question for you. What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs in Hong Kong to make it big?
I would actually suggest, as actually one of my programmers in-house would teach me to think through, is think big. Really do think that the world can be anything you want it to be. And then but also think how to execute in a timely manner all the issues. To navigate, to actually know, to be successful, you actually have to navigate through a lot of tedious issues, but because you're mentally thought through what these issues may be, then you would actually mentally be able to stay strong. So if you think small, and of course you start small, that's great, but then if you think big, you also think through what the challenges may be ahead of you, so you're mentally prepared for the next chapter.
So mental strength is going to be one of the things that they really have to focus on.
Correct.
And I think that's great because we probably don't hear that often enough. A lot of people say the skills, the technical skills, the idea, but really I think mental strength, like Joanne says, is very important. Yes. So we have some more questions from the audience. Okay. What are the key things you look for before making a decision or starting a new business project?
Before, when I was younger, I doubted my own guts and my own instincts a lot more. I thought, the person that I hired with more expertise than myself would actually be a better judgment than myself. But it turns out that no, a lot of times you just have to actually listen to yourself. When you're actually in a very difficult business decision, do find time to reflect on why you're doing it, and do find time to listen to your inner voice. So when I've had to, a few times when it was a difficult decision to make, I did take a step back. I wouldn't say it's a retreat, but I often take on different courses to help me learn about different skill sets, not definitely related to business. It could be completely different, but it helps put things into perspective and also remind you why you're doing it to begin with.
Okay, and I have another question from our audience. In terms of, we talked about the importance of co-founder and HR earlier. In terms of your co-founder, what do you think is the most important characteristic that you're looking for?
I know a lot of people look for strengths and weaknesses in each other, and I would say my CEO and I actually share a lot of similarities as opposed to differences. But to find a good partner and good co-founder, you really have to know why you're coming and starting this together. A lot of times we don't really we have trouble remembering why we're do this project to begin with. Yeah. But when you sit back and find the ethos of your founders, then you actually know, are you going to share McDonald's together? Are you going to hang out together? You don't have to love your co-founder. I would say sometimes I don't love my co-founder, but you actually have to be able to agree to disagree. That means once you make a decision, once you leave the room, you guys are in the forefront of your business, and you guys are all very strong as to making the right business call and not living with the regrets and blaming each other for these mistakes. Yeah. So hopefully it summarizes it.
Did you find your co-founder right when you first started, or was it someone that came in kind of where you already started your projects?
So different businesses, different experiences. There is one business that I actually founded with partners of introduction. Okay. And that was, of course, you met one of them, Kevin. Right. He was actually introduced to me by my husband, and we came together to think through what the business means and how we could grow together. sometimes through introductions, you actually get to know that person better than you know yourself. So probably my husband knew myself and my partner very well to put us together.
So he knew that these two people would be right together.
Our strengths and weaknesses complement each other.
Okay. And for other projects?
For other projects, sometimes it could be a business deal. So you have to realize that you will be disappointed, and yet you're both in it for very strong, clear business reasons. And there's not to say there's no love, there is. It's just that their end goal is to accomplish something you've set out to on a business plan.
Okay. And do you have any experience working with family member? And is that any different from working with coworkers outside of family?
I definitely have a lot of experience working with family. Prior to starting my own business, I worked for my family business for over 10 years. I also am the director of one of the family business on the fashion and trading manufacturing side. So I have worked with my brother and my father very closely on many fronts. We do have a lot of disagreements, as do all families do. And of course, the family dinner table is a lot about work as well. But fortunately and unfortunately, we can embrace our differences and we can keep the emotional aside. It's very heated, by the way. It's not like we don't keep it heated, but I wouldn't say we apologize. It's not direct apologies at times when we're in difficult arguments. I would say we all want the same thing. And if you remind yourself that you all want the business to be better, you all want your employees to do well, and you all want to continue to grow, whether it's for the family or for yourself, then you remind yourself why you're doing it to begin with. Family business is hard.
It's hard. Yeah. Are there factions? Because you said there's like your brother, there's also your father. Do you guys take sides, or is it always like you guys against dad, or is it like the guys against you?
I would have to say on different issues, we take different sides. But we do tend to try to make a decision and continue to work on it. So I am a strategist to begin with. I've studied public relations and public policy, so I am the strategist in the family. So once I map out, they can critique. Once they've critiqued, I take on their opinions, then I actually try to incorporate everyone's end goal into consideration. So it's not easy. We are not always on the same side. We will take different sides, but that's like any other management boardroom. Corporate governance is actually very hard in a family business, and I would highly recommend people to bring in outsiders to actually drive corporate governance.
Okay, and another question. So usually a lot of women are in the fashion and design industry. Do you think there's space for men, and what do you think is there any advantages for men in this space?
Majority of the people who work for us is actually men, not female. On the supply chain side, I have one female staff and majority of them are men. And on the fashion side, even on the merchandising side, actually, we have a lot of driven men as well. I would say women has an advantage to begin with when they enter into industry, but men's business acumen, when they focus, is actually really important. So I think for those that are interested in growing in the fashion industry, it's definitely not for female. It's for both genders.
Both genders. So advantages, disadvantages of both. Yeah. It's like you said, it's the same thing about the co-founders, right? You've got to just mix and match and get the right skill set mixed together, the sum of the skill sets, and that's how you can make it, and you can make it and become more successful with your startup. So you've done fashion, and you've done Bow Concept, you've done Tom Dixon. Is there a different area that you're looking to go into next?
I have been looking at big data and also AI. I think it's not just a global trend. I actually have been looking at what type of insights I can actually derive from it. So previously, when I used to work as a junior, I used to have to travel to different cities to look at fashion trends. So we physically used to have to walk to different stores, different department stores, different outlets to see what's on trend.
Okay.
But now that the world is a different landscape now, it's actually interesting to see how these insights from data can actually start to pinpoint what the changes are without us physically seeing the stores in Paris or Milan. So I think that's going to be an interesting trend for me to continue to follow and evolve with. So I'll definitely look at that space in more detail.
AI, wow, because that's definitely a hot space. Everyone's talking about AI and how it can change the world going forward. The whole information being more open and everyone knowing more, making more informed decisions. So that's something else that looks like that can be definitely applied to.
Yeah, it's applicable because it also helps the supply chain be a bit more lean, and it also helps us actually work with other people in the industry. We have to work together in this period of time, and it's important that we still believe. If not, there's no reason why we're in fashion or lifestyle
at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question. It's about sustainability. So how do you see sustainability in fashion going forward? Is there a specific area you see that's going to have more opportunities than others?
Yes, I have seen a lot of actually athletic leisure brands coming out with a very clear sustainable business model. I applaud them for actually doing something that's for the environment as well as for fashion. And it's really great to see how raw materials have been recycled in clothing, in furniture, and lifestyle products. It's definitely not easy. The R&D work that's involved in this current stage is very complex. But I hope with 3 to 5 more years, similar to the wearable tech trend that I foresee, we will work on it to ensure that the sustainable aspect is here to stay. It'll be costly for people to manufacture the way we used to, which was more heavily in water wastage and materials. That will probably change as a result of our conscientious of environment.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you think the sustainability angle is another angle. So it sounds like AI is something, logistics is something, sustainability is something, wearables is also something to look out for going forward. Okay, I know that we're just about out of time. So thank you everyone for your participation, and what a great chat. And thank you so much again, Joanne, for coming in today and sharing your thoughts and vision with us. So I know that a lot of you have questions out there that I might not be able to get to. So if you do have further questions for Joanne, please feel free to email us. There will be a slide that comes up afterwards where you can see the information for the email, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you again today for joining us for the Vision and Community to Foster Hong Kong's Next Generation, which is co-hosted by Jumpstart Media. And for those of you who don't know, Jumpstart Media is a startup ecosystem builder that is based here in Hong Kong. So we also provide founders with the platform and resources they need to make their startup a success. So if you want to know more about Jumpstart, also feel free to email us. The slide will come up afterwards with the relevant information. Last but not least, don't forget to check out more webinars on the HKTDC Summer Sourcing Weeks Go online. Thank you again, Joanne, and thank you to all of you for joining us again today.
Thank you very much.